Hey, welcome. My name's Daryl Rouse, rhymes with house, and this series is about having an efficient, effective business where you make money, you're also profitable, where you have enjoyable clients, where, dare I say, you actually enjoy the business on a daily basis. 34 years ago, I didn't start out that way, but eventually my business has morphed into something that I actually enjoy going to. I'm 60 years old now, in fact, in a couple of days, and I love my business. No thoughts of retiring. No one retires when they love their business. Keep that in mind. So let's move on to tip number one. This is part of a 4-part series, so if you haven't heard the other 3 parts, go back and listen to them, and it actually might be a 5-part series. Number one, what I call CPR for your business. Nothing to do with your heart, but C is being consistent, doing the things it takes on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, and maybe 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, whatever it takes, doing those things all the time. And real estate's the simplest business in the world. It's not rocket science. And if you can't figure out what it takes to generate clients and sell a house, even after you've been in the business for maybe 6 months, then you're probably in the wrong business, because it's an extremely simple business where you just have to be consistent. But the P, you also have to be persistent, and you have to be able to keep going when things aren't happening for you, when you're prospecting and not getting leads, when you're getting listings but they're not selling, when you're working with buyers but they're not buying. That's where the persistence comes in, and you have to have, I suppose, blind faith is a word, that what you're doing will eventually work. And it worked for me. If you could see me in my first year of real estate, even probably into my second year of real estate, if I'd listened to all the advice I was getting, I probably should have quit the business, because I had no talent in this field at all. I was not a natural salesperson. I still stuttered fairly badly. I was a foreigner in a foreign country, yet I still persisted with it, and it eventually paid off. So the C is for consistency, the P is for persistence, and the R is resistance. You have to have a lot of resistance in this industry. Resistance to economic changes, resistance to what we're going through right now with social change, resistant to things that you have no control over within your business, like sometimes a factory or something may shut down your area, and how are you going to get business now? Where are the buyers going to come from? So you have to have a lot of resistance, including resistance from your friends that don't support you in your endeavors. You've got to be very careful who you tell your goals to, because if people don't support you, they just see you as flexing or being smart, or you're making all that money, and what are you actually doing? So be careful who you share your goals with. So you have to have that resistance to all the negative influences that show up in this business on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. So CPR for your business. Number 2, Occam's Razor. Funny term, but it's named after William Ockham, who was a philosopher, I think, in the 16th century. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. And eventually what he figured out was, given a choice, humans tend to take the more difficult choice rather than the simplest choice. Science eventually adopted this and said, when we have an issue or a problem, we're trying to figure something out, look for the simplest solution first. Don't complicate something that doesn't need complicating. I mean, if you're not selling enough houses, well, look at it. Do I have enough listings? If you don't have enough listings, okay, do I have enough listing appointments? If you don't, then am I getting enough leads? If you're not getting enough leads, am I doing enough prospecting? If you're not doing enough prospecting, do I have a good enough schedule to keep me on track? If you don't have that, do I have the motivation? It all goes back to a singularity. And so you just have to focus on what's simplest. Remember the movie Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton? Guy brings in the mower, they can't fix it, they've checked everything. He walks over to it, looks at it, walks away and says, out of gas. And then the owner talked to the client, or turned to the client and said, that's what I like about that boy. He thinks of the simple things first. Real estate is the simplest business in the world. Keep it that way. Seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy. We get in the middle, provide what's I call emotional detachment, and we allow that transaction to happen, and we get paid very well because of it. So don't overcomplicate this business. Occam's Razor. If you need to Google it and maybe read a little bit more, do that, but it's fascinating how once you apply this for your business, it is a simple business. Number 3, set up the circumstances and create the environment that allow the truth to be told. I kind of learned this one the hard way. My first couple of years of the business, I didn't want a buyer to say, I don't like the house. I didn't want a seller to say, I'm talking to other agents because I just don't think the price you gave me is high enough. I was afraid to hear the truth. I never set up the circumstances and create that environment where I allowed the person to tell me the truth. I'll give you an example. you're sitting having family dinner, and little Johnny, you hear him in the next room, and he's kicking the ball around, and think, oh, then all of a sudden you hear smash, and you run in there, and that beautiful vase, which has been in the family for a generation, is on the floor all smashed. And you flip out, you do the Indian war dance, you go, Johnny, did you break that vase? What's he going to say? He's going to say no, because you did not set up the circumstances and create the environment to allow the truth. But if you went in there and go, oh, gosh, we did like that vase, but I know you didn't do it intentionally. Did you kick the ball and did that happen? Little Johnny's going to put his head down and go, yeah. Right? Now, then he might get in trouble, but that's beside the point. The point is, you have to allow the truth to happen. I mean, when I'm with a buyer now, and my wife Kim worked with most of the buyers, but when she was with the buyers, she would ask a question when they're getting close to writing that contract and she senses that hesitation. She goes, put the pen down, stop. Tell me what your biggest fear is moving forward. And then she'd pause and wait for the answer, which I've talked a lot about before. And a lot of times I'd say, well, gosh, we're really worried because the rent we're paying now is less than the mortgage. And she would pause and she'd say, I understand. Right? So she allowed them to tell the truth. And then she would overcome that objection. She'd talk about how in a couple of years' time you'll get used to that mortgage payment, or maybe 6 months or a year. You may have to cut back on a few things here and there. But eventually the rent that you would have paid will be higher than your mortgage, and then you'll be 5 or 10 years into it, and then you'll be owning a house, and you'll be happy, and you'll buy your next house, and you'll come back and thank me. But she was very, very good at creating that environment to allow a buyer to tell her the truth. Also, she would do that, and she'd be okay hearing what she didn't want to hear. A buyer might go, you know what, gosh, we just don't like the house enough. And she'd go, no problem, let's not make the offer, let's go and find you something you like. Because if you keep going with that and you allow that mistruth to perpetuate, they eventually feel forced into making an offer, and they make a low offer which you can't get accepted. Even when the seller comes down to a fair amount, the buyer won't come up and you can't figure it out. I mean, when you're with the seller and the seller says, gosh, Darryl, we're going to interview 2 or 3 more agents, you say, no problem, can I stop here? Can I ask why you may want to do that? You allow that truth. You allow that person to tell you the truth. Now, there's lots of objection handling techniques that I've talked about, and I understand that, but the biggest thing I want to get across is allow the truth to happen with buyers and sellers, and you'll find you stop wasting a lot of time. So that's it. Please like and subscribe. Hit the bell if you want to be reminded every time I do one of these videos. And that's it for this week.